The night I found out, I was standing barefoot in my own kitchen in Dublin, Ohio, holding a phone that wasn't mine, and reading a text message that ended 11 years of my life in the time it took my heart to beat once. The message said, "The twins are asleep. When are you coming home to us? Your other kids miss you too." I read it 3 times. Then I looked down the hall toward the room where my twins, my Lily and my Noah, were sleeping under the glow of a nightlight shaped like a moon. And I understood that the man I married had 2 families. And that I was the one who never knew. My name is Claire. I'm 36 years old. And this is the story of how I lost everything I thought was real. And how I picked up my 2 children in the middle of the night and drove 700 miles to save what was left of us. If you've ever trusted someone completely and felt the floor disappear beneath you, stay with me, because this one goes deep. Let me take you back to the beginning, so you understand exactly what I gave up. And exactly what was taken from me. I grew up in a small town outside Toledo. My father drove a delivery route for a bakery and my mother cleaned rooms at a chain hotel off the interstate. We never had money, but we had order. My mother believed that if you worked hard and stayed loyal, life would eventually be fair to you. I believed her. That belief shaped every decision I ever made. I met Adam Whitfield when I was 24. At a wedding in Columbus. I was a bridesmaid for a coworker and he was a groomsman for the groom. He was tall, easy to laugh, the kind of man who remembered the name of every server and tipped like he owed them something. When he found out I'd grown up poor, he didn't flinch. He told me his family had money but that money made people cold. And he wanted to build a life that felt warm. I remember thinking that was the most honest thing a man had ever said to me. I know now it was the first lie. We married 18 months later in a small ceremony because I didn't want his family paying for a big one. His mother, Diane, wore gray to my wedding. Gray. She smiled with her mouth but never her eyes. And when she hugged me she said, "You're a lucky girl." Adam could have married anyone. I told myself she was just protective. Mothers are protective. I forgave her before she ever earned forgiveness. That was my pattern, and my downfall. For the first few years, we lived in a rented duplex while Adam built his career. He worked in medical device sales, which meant travel. Constant travel. Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, sometimes further. He would leave Sunday night and come back Thursday. Exhausted, apologetic, loving. I gave up my own job as a dental hygienist when I got pregnant. Because Adam said he wanted our children raised by their mother. Not a daycare. I said yes. I always said yes. The twins came 4 years into our marriage. Lily first, then Noah, 7 minutes apart, both screaming. Both perfect. I nearly died delivering them. I lost so much blood that I spent 2 days in the ICU. And when I finally held them, I promised those 2 babies that I would give them the childhood I never had. Stability. Warmth. A father who came home. I meant it with everything in me. Adam cried when he held them. Real tears. I watched his face and I thought, this is a good man. Whatever else was true, and I now know a great deal else was true. I still believe he loved holding those babies. That's the part that haunts me. He wasn't a monster in a mask. He was a man who wanted 2 whole lives and refused to choose. Here's what my days looked like for the next 7 years. I woke at 5:30 to have coffee ready before Adam left. I packed lunches, drove to preschool, then elementary school. Ran the house, handled the bills, managed the doctor appointments, the dentist, the soccer practices, the birthday parties. Adam earned the money and I ran the world it paid for. When his mother needed her gutters cleaned or her prescriptions picked up. I did that too, because Adam was always traveling and I wanted his family to see me as devoted. I wanted to be the daughter-in-law who earned her place. Diane never let me. She corrected the way I folded towels. She told me my parenting was a little permissive. She once returned a Christmas gift I gave her in front of me, and said the color wasn't right. I swallowed all of it. For Adam. For the family. For the picture I was painting in my head. Now let me tell you about the warning signs. Because they were there. They are always there. We just teach ourselves not to see them. The first was the money. Adam made good money. Well into the six figures, but somehow we were always tight. He handled all the finances. He said it was easier that way. That I had enough on my plate. I had access to one checking account with a modest balance. And he gave me a monthly amount for groceries and the house. Any time I asked about savings or retirement, he'd say, "It's handled, babe. Don't stress. I've got us." For years I let that answer be enough. Because questioning it felt like distrust, and distrust felt like disloyalty. The second sign was his phone. It never left his hand. He slept with it face down under his pillow. He had a passcode he changed constantly. Once, early on, I picked it up to check the weather and he crossed the room in 2 steps and took it from me. Laughing, but his hand was shaking. I told myself he was private. Everyone deserves privacy. The third sign was the travel that never quite added up. He was gone more than any salesperson I'd ever heard of. He'd say he was in Louisville, but the background of a video call would look like a living room. Not a hotel. He'd come home smelling faintly of a perfume I didn't own. Once I found a child's drawing in his overnight bag. A crayon picture of a house with 4 stick figures. And when I asked, he said a client's kid gave it to him. I put it back. I believed him. 4 stick figures. My God, it was right there in my hands. The fourth sign was Diane. And this is the one I'll never forgive myself for missing. She would call the house and if Adam wasn't home she'd get flustered. Then careful, then she'd ask me questions that felt like tests. Has Adam mentioned his plans this weekend? Did he say where he'd be Thursday? I thought she was just a nosy mother. I didn't understand she was a coordinator, making sure the 2 calendars never collided. His mother wasn't just aware of the secret. She was running logistics. The thing that finally cracked it open happened on an ordinary Tuesday in October. Adam had left his work phone at home. Not his personal phone, the one welded to his hand. But a second phone, a plain black one I'd never seen. That had slipped down between the couch cushions. I found it while vacuuming. It buzzed in my hand. And that was the message. The twins are asleep. When are you coming home to us? Your other kids miss you too. I need you to understand what that word did to me. Twins. He had another set of twins. My twins were asleep down the hall. And somewhere else in this country, another woman was putting another set of Adam's children to bed and asking when their father was coming home. I didn't scream. That surprised me. The house was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator hum. I sat down on the kitchen floor with that phone in my lap and I scrolled. And the more I scrolled, the more the ground gave way. Her name was Renata. She lived in Lexington, Kentucky, 90 minutes from a route Adam drove every single week. They had been together for 6 years. 6 years. Which meant it started when my twins were babies. When I was still bleeding out in an ICU learning to be a mother. She had 2 children with him. A 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. He had a whole second home, with a mortgage in his name that I'd never seen. In a subdivision outside Lexington. There were photos. Adam at a backyard birthday party wearing a party hat. Adam pushing a stroller. Adam asleep on a couch that wasn't mine. With a baby on his chest that wasn't ours. And then I found the messages with Diane. His mother had her own thread on that phone. And what I read in that thread ended any doubt about what my marriage had been. She wrote things like, I moved the Thanksgiving with Claire to the 26th so you can do the 24th in Lexington. And tell Claire the sales conference is in Chicago this year. She won't check. And, worst of all, you're a good father to all four of them. Don't let Claire's questions make you feel guilty. She was always going to be the practical wife. Renata is the one you love. The practical wife. That's what I was to them. A household manager. A womb that produced the acceptable grandchildren. A woman kept comfortable and uninformed so that the real family, the one his mother approved of, could flourish in secret 90 minutes down the interstate. I want to tell you I confronted him that night. I didn't. Something cold and clear came over me. And for the first time in 11 years, I stopped being the practical wife and started being something else. Because I realized that if I confronted Adam, he would call his mother, and the two of them would outmaneuver me. They'd had 6 years of practice at controlling the story. I had one night. So I did the coldest, smartest thing I have ever done. I took photographs. Of everything. The messages, the mortgage documents I found in a photo he'd saved. The birthday party pictures, the whole thread with Diane. I emailed them to an account he didn't know I had. One I made on the spot. Then I put the black phone back exactly where I'd found it. Between the cushions, angled the way it had fallen. And I went to bed next to my husband and I stared at the ceiling until the sun came up. The next morning, I made his coffee. I packed his bag. I kissed him goodbye at the door like I had 1,000 times. And I watched him drive off toward Kentucky. Toward them, and I felt nothing but focus. The moment his car turned the corner, I called the one person left in my life who had never once let me down. My older sister, Bethany. Beth lives in Grand Rapids, Michigan, 4 hours north. I told her everything on the phone, standing in the driveway so the kids wouldn't hear. There was a long silence, and then Beth said the words that saved me. She said, Claire, get the kids, get your documents. And come home. Right now. Don't wait for him. Don't warn him. Just come. So I did. Here's where I have to be honest about the panic. Because the movies make this part look brave and clean. And it wasn't. It was terrifying. I had no money of my own. Everything was in Adam's name or in accounts I couldn't fully see. I had 2 8-year-old children who thought we were going on a surprise trip to see Aunt Beth. And I had a husband who, the moment he found that phone moved even an inch, would know. I spent that day moving fast and quiet. I pulled the kids out of school early. I grabbed the important documents, the birth certificates, the social security cards, our passports, the twins' medical records. I found the folder of financial papers Adam kept in the office and I photographed every page. Then took the originals I thought I was entitled to. I packed 2 suitcases, mostly the kids' things. And in a shoebox on the top shelf of our bedroom closet. Behind Adam's old college trophies, I found $4,000 in cash. Emergency money, he'd once called it. I took every dollar. It was the first thing that had ever truly felt like mine. By 3 in the afternoon, I had Lily and Noah buckled into the back seat with juice boxes and iPads. And I was pulling onto the highway heading north. watching my house get small in the mirror. Noah asked why we were leaving on a school day. I told him it was an adventure. Lily, who has always been the one who sees too much, looked at me in the rearview mirror and asked, "Mom, are you okay?" I said, "Yes, baby. I'm okay." It was the second time in my life I lied to my children. And I promised myself it would be the last. We were 2 hours into Michigan when the calls started. Adam called first. Then again. Then 11 times in a row. Then the texts came. "Where are you? The school says you took the kids. Claire, what is going on? Call me right now." I didn't answer. I drove. And then, right on schedule, the number I'd been dreading lit up my screen. Diane. I let it ring. Then a voicemail arrived. And at a gas station outside Grand Rapids. With the kids inside buying snacks, I listened to it. My mother-in-law's voice, tight and controlled, said, "Claire, I don't know what you think you've found. But you are being hysterical and you are kidnapping my grandchildren. Bring them back tonight and we can discuss this like adults. Or you will regret this for the rest of your life. You have no idea what this family can do to you. You have no money, no job, and no proof of anything. Think very carefully. You have no proof of anything." She said that to a woman with 43 photographs of the truth in her email. I stood at that gas pump and I actually smiled. And it was the first real smile in 24 hours. Because that voicemail told me two things. It told me they were scared. And it told me I had underestimated exactly how ruthless Diane had always been. She wasn't a difficult mother-in-law. She was the architect of my entire deception. We got to Beth's house that night. She was standing on the porch when we pulled in. And when I got out of the car my legs finally gave out. And my sister held me up in the driveway while the kids ran inside to hug their cousins. I hadn't cried yet. Not once. But in Beth's arms. In the cold Michigan dark, it finally came out. All of it, 11 years of it. The next morning, Beth took charge in the way big sisters do. She had already called a friend from work whose ex-husband had put her through something similar. And that friend had given her the name of a family law attorney in Grand Rapids named Priya Nair. Beth had booked me an appointment for that afternoon. She said, "You are not going into this blind and alone the way you've done everything else in this marriage. Not this time." Priya Nair changed my life. I sat in her office and I laid out my phone with all 43 photographs. And I watched her expression shift from professional sympathy to something sharper as she scrolled. When she got to the messages with Diane, she stopped, looked up at me, and said, "Claire, I need you to understand something. What you found isn't just infidelity. There may be fraud here. A second mortgage. Hidden accounts, money moved out of the marital estate for 6 years. This changes the entire case. This is very good for you. And it is very, very bad for him." For the first time, I felt the ground come back under my feet. But I want to be honest with you. Because this is where a lot of these stories lie to you. It did not get easy. It got harder before it got better. Because Adam and Diane did not surrender. They attacked. Within a week, Adam filed for emergency custody in Ohio, claiming I had abducted the children and was mentally unstable. His filing said I had, quote, "a history of postpartum depression," and had, quote, "taken the children across state lines in a psychotic episode." He took the 2 days I spent in the ICU after nearly dying to give birth to his children. And he twisted it into a weapon to take those same children away from me. That was the moment I stopped grieving my marriage. You cannot grieve something that was never real. Priya was ready for it. She filed in response. And she attached the messages. Diane's own words. In Diane's own thread. Tell Claire the sales conference is in Chicago. She won't check. A judge read those words. A judge read a mother-in-law coordinating a 6-year deception. Moving holidays, funneling a man between two families. And the emergency custody petition that was supposed to destroy me collapsed in a single afternoon. Then came the part one never expected. The financial discovery. When the court ordered Adam to disclose all his assets. The truth was worse than even I had imagined. Over 6 years, he had moved more than $200,000 of our marital money into accounts and property tied to his second household. He had refinanced our home in Ohio without my full understanding. Taking cash out to fund the Lexington house. He had lied on loan applications. He had listed himself as single on the Kentucky mortgage. Priya found it all. And a forensic accountant she brought in found even more. Here is a detail I'll never forget. During a deposition, Adam's own attorney asked him to explain a wire transfer. And Adam, sweating, said, "My mother handled that account." His mother handled it. Even under oath, even with everything falling apart. The two of them were still one machine. Diane had co-signed. Diane had helped hide money. Diane had, it turned out, put the Lexington house partly in her own name to keep it off Adam's books. She wasn't just covering up an affair. She was a party to financial fraud. And she'd made herself legally exposed to protect the son she believed deserved two families. Renata, meanwhile, found out about me the same week I found out about her. Because when Adam's world collapsed, he couldn't be in two places anymore. And the lies that kept us apart evaporated. She called me. I almost didn't answer, but I did. Because I needed to hear it. And what she told me broke my heart in a way I didn't expect. Renata thought Adam was divorced. He had told her 6 years earlier that his marriage to me had ended and that we shared custody of the twins. Which was why he had them so often. He told her his mother, Diane, was the only family who supported the relationship. Which was true, just not in the way Renata understood. Renata was not a villain. She was another woman with 2 small children. Lied to for 6 years, betrayed by the same man and the same mother. Discovering the truth on the same phone calls. We were on opposite sides of a wall he built. Both of us thinking we were the whole story. She and I talked for 2 hours that night. And by the end, something strange and unexpected had happened. We were not enemies. We were witnesses. She agreed to give a statement about what Adam had told her. And about Diane's role in maintaining the lie. 2 women who were supposed to hate each other instead handed the truth to each other. And that truth was heavier than anything Adam and his mother could carry. The divorce took 14 months. I won't pretend those months weren't brutal. There were nights I sat on Beth's guest room floor and wondered if I'd ruined my children's lives by tearing their father out of it. There were moments of doubt so heavy I could barely breathe. Lily started wetting the bed again. Noah stopped talking for almost 2 weeks. I got them into counseling with a wonderful therapist named Dr. Alvarez, and slowly, so slowly, they came back to themselves. Children are more resilient than we deserve, but resilience is not free. They paid a price for their father's choices. And I will carry that for the rest of my life. But here is how it ended, and this part is real. Not a fantasy. The court found in my favor on nearly everything. Not because a judge felt sorry for me. But because the evidence was overwhelming and I had documented it from the very first night. I was awarded primary custody of the twins. With Adam receiving supervised visitation, supervised because of the sworn lies he'd told about my mental health to try to take my children. The marital assets were divided in my favor to account for the money he had hidden and drained. I received the equity I was owed from the Ohio house, which we sold. And because of the fraud on the mortgage applications, Adam faced consequences that went beyond the divorce. Consequences that were his to answer for, not mine. Diane faced her own reckoning. Her name on that Kentucky property, her co-signatures, her documented role in the financial deception. All of it exposed her. The woman who told me I had no proof of anything spent a great deal of her own money on lawyers trying to keep herself out of the wreckage she helped build. The family with all its cold money that Adam once told me made people cruel. That family spent a fortune, and it did not save either of them from the truth. I did not get revenge. I want to be clear about that. Because I know these stories often end with the wronged wife burning it all down in some dramatic scene. I never keyed his car. I never screamed at Diane in a parking lot. I never posted their faces online. I simply told the truth. In the right rooms, with the right evidence. And I let the truth do what the truth does. That was enough. That was more than enough. Today, almost 3 years later, I live in Grand Rapids, 20 minutes from my sister. I went back to work as a dental hygienist. And it felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I'd handed away at 26. Lily is 11 now and plays the violin. Noah discovered he loves to draw, and yes, sometimes he draws houses with stick figures, and every single time my heart squeezes. And every single time there are 3 figures in his drawings. Him, his sister, and me, and that is the whole family. And it is enough. Renata and I still talk. Our children, the 2 sets of twins and her little ones. Half-siblings, all of them, have met a few times. We decided, the 2 of us, that the kids did nothing wrong and deserved to know each other if they wanted to. Adam gave them a tangled bloodline. Renata and I gave them the choice to make something gentle out of it. I am prouder of that decision than almost anything else in this story. Adam sees the twins under supervision. He is, from what I hear, still trying to hold together the Lexington life. Though Renata left him too. Diane no longer speaks to me, which is the one gift she ever gave me freely. Now let me tell you what I learned. Because I promised you this wasn't just a story. And I meant it. I learned that loyalty given to people who have not earned it is not a virtue. It is a vulnerability. For 11 years I called my silence loyalty. I called my forgiveness maturity. I called my refusal to ask questions trust. But it was none of those things. It was fear dressed up as goodness. Real loyalty is a 2-way road, and I was the only one ever walking it. I learned that when someone controls all the money, all the information, and all the story, they are not protecting you. They are managing you. The day I started asking to see the accounts should not have been the day I found the phone. It should have been years earlier. Ladies, know where your money is. Know what is in your name. Being informed is not distrust. It is dignity. And I learned the most painful lesson of all. Which is that the people who smile at your wedding are not always on your side. Diane wore gray to my wedding and I forgave her before she earned it. And I kept forgiving her for 11 years. And the whole time she was building the machine that would erase me. Watch how people treat you when they think you're not important. That is who they really are. But I also learned that you are never as trapped as you feel at 3 in the morning. I had no money, no job, and a voicemail telling me I had no proof of anything. And I still got in that car. Sometimes saving your life looks like a woman driving north on a highway with 2 juice boxes and a shoebox of cash. Not knowing what comes next, only knowing she cannot stay. If you're listening to this and something in it felt too familiar, I want you to hear me. Document everything. Tell one person you trust. And know that the practical wife, the quiet one, the one they think will never check, is often the strongest person in the room. They just made the mistake of underestimating her. So let me leave you with this question. And I really want you to answer it in the comments. Because I read them, and your stories help other people who are sitting in silence right now. Here is my question. Have you ever ignored a warning sign because trusting someone felt safer than facing the truth? And what finally made you open your eyes? Tell me below. I'll be there, reading every one. Thank you for staying with me until the end. Take care of yourself. And never, ever let anyone convince you that you have no proof of your own life.